Hey guys, it's Caleb back again with more Goosebumps, and we have our technically last Goosebumps book, Return of the Mummy. He's back from the dead. And the reason why I say technical is because I have this Choose Your Own Adventure Goosebumps book, but I'm not sure how I want to do that one yet, if I want to do it at all. Expect that to maybe not be a thing. The cover's okay. It definitely gets across that there's a mummy and the thing. And we have the same circle background. I don't know if that's supposed to be the same sarcophagus or not. But yeah, that's a thing. And now that I think about it, this is a rather bland sarcophagus for what I'm looking at. I think it's supposed to be a pharaoh, I'm pretty sure. I don't know why it's so bland. I would expect more beads and things to be decorating it. But anyway, a mummy is popping out of it. Though we can't really see it, and he's got like some eerie smoke or something coming off of him. And that's about it for the cover. Dead. Or alive. After last year's scary adventure, Gabe's a little nervous about being back in Egypt. Back near the ancient pyramids, back where he saw all those creepy mummies. Then he learns about an Egyptian superstition, a secret chant that is supposed to bring mummies back to life. Gabe's uncle says it's just a hoax, but now it sounds like something's moving in the mummy's tomb. No way a couple of dumb words can wake the dead, can they? Reader beware, you're in for a scare. Goosebumps, also available from R.L. Stine, Phantom of the Auditorium, which I don't have, so I can't read it. Chapter 1. Gabe, we'll be landing soon, the stewardess told me. Because she knows you by name? Leaning over the seat. Will someone be meeting you at the airport? Yes, probably an ancient Egyptian pharaoh, I told her, or maybe a disgusting, decaying mummy. She narrowed her eyes at me. No, really, she insisted. Who will be meeting you in Cairo? Why would the stewardess care? Her job is to get you food or water and make sure you are safe while on the plane. My Uncle Ben, I replied, but he likes to play practical jokes. Sometimes he dresses in weird costumes and tries to scare me. You told me that your uncle was a famous scientist, the stewardess said. Uh-huh, wouldn't you fucking know this? It said in the last book that he was famous, that he'd been in, like, journals and shit. He is, I replied, but he's also weird. She laughed. I liked her a lot. She had pretty blonde hair, and I liked the way she always tilted her head to one side when she talked. Her name was Nancy, because I'm sure she'll be super important for the rest of this book, so you should know the stewardess's name. Her name was Nancy, and she had been very nice to me during the long flight to Egypt. She knew it was my first time flying all by myself. Oh, right, because you were with your parents last time, I remember now. She kept checking on me and asking me how I was doing, but she treated me like a grown-up. I'm sure she did, which is why she keeps checking on you. And asking if there's somebody who's going to pick you up, because, like, your parents wouldn't have arranged that for you in the first place. Because being your age, don't you have to explain to the pilots and stuff why the kid is alone on the plane? Granted, I've never been, as a child, alone on a plane, but I assume this is a thing that happens. She didn't bring me one of those dumb connect the dots books or a plastic wing pen that they always gave to kids on planes. You're like, what, 13 now? Why would she give you any of that shit? You're too old for it. And she kept slipping me extra bags of peanuts, even though she wasn't supposed to. Okay, granted, I don't know how long a flight to Egypt takes, But I assume it'll be at least a day. Are you just constantly snacking on peanuts? And why would she do that? She would lose her job. Why are you visiting your uncle? Nancy asked. Just for fun? I nodded. I did it last summer, too, I told her. It was really awesome, but this year Uncle Ben has been digging in an unexplored pyramid. He's discovering an ancient sacred tomb. An ancient sacred tomb. And he invited me to be with him when he opens it up. She laughed and tilted her head a little more. You have a good imagination, Gabe, she said. Why would he be lying about this? I mean, I could understand maybe you think it's a little far-fetched, but why would he lie? She said, then she turned away to answer a man's question. Okay, so you're not the only one on this flight. Again, why would they bother to learn your name? Whatever. I do have a good imagination, but I wasn't making that up. My Uncle Ben Hassad, is that your name in the last book? I don't remember. Is a famous archaeologist. He has been digging around in pyramids for lots of years. Why not say for many years? You don't need to add pointless words. I've seen newspaper articles about him, and once he was in National Geographic. Last summer, my entire family visited Cairo. My cousin Saria and I, she's Uncle Ben's daughter, had some amazing adventures down in the chambers in the Great Pyramid. Saria will be there this summer, too, I remember, staring out the plane window at the solid blue sky. I wondered if maybe she would give me a break this time. I like Sari. I thought you didn't like her, because she's so competitive. But she's so competitive. She always has to be first, the strongest, the smartest, the best. She's the only 13-year-old girl I know who can turn eating breakfast into a contest. I don't remember if their ages match up to what it was in the last book. I don't really give a shit. Flight attendants, prepare for landing, the pilot announced over the loudspeaker. I sat up to get a better view out the window. As the plane lowered, I could see the city of Cairo beneath us. A slender blue ribbon curled along the city. How? Oh, that I knew was the Nile River. Would it really look blue? I don't know. The city stretched out from the river. Peering straight down, I could see tall glass skyscrapers and low domed temples. Where the city ended, the desert began. Yellow sand stretched to the horizon. My stomach began to feel a little fluttery. The pyramids were somewhere out in the desert. No shit. And in a day or two I would be climbing down into one of them, following my uncle into a tomb that hadn't been opened for thousands of years. What would we find? I pulled the little mummy hand from my shirt pocket and gazed down at it. It was so tiny, no bigger than a child's hand. I had bought it from a kid at a garage sale for $2. I don't remember if that's true or not, but I know he bought it at a garage sale. He said it was called a summoner. He said it could summon ancient evil spirits. I thought you... Well, I don't really remember from that book to this. This is how much I didn't give a shit. It looked like a mummy hand. The fingers were wrapped in stained gauze bandages with a little black tar showing through. I thought it was fake, made of rubber or plastic. I mean, I never thought it was a real mummy hand. But last summer, the hand had saved all of our lives. The kid who sold it to me was right. It really did bring a bunch of mummies to life. No, he said it could summon evil spirits. It was amazing. Of course, my parents and my friends back home didn't believe my incredible story, and they didn't believe that the summoner really worked. They said it was just a joke mummy hand made in some souvenir factory, probably made in Taiwan. Of course, 'cause everything's made in Taiwan, or China, or not here. But I carry it with me wherever I go. You did it anyway. It is my good luck charm. I'm not very superstitious. I mean, I walk under ladders all the time. Why? Just 'cause you're a dick? That's very dangerous. And my lucky number is 13. Okay. But I really do believe that the little mummy hand will protect me. The strange thing about the mummy hand is that it is always warm. It doesn't feel like plastic. It feels warm like a real human hand. Back home in Michigan, I had a minor panic attack when Mom and Dad were packing my suitcase for the flight. Because you can't pack your own shit. I couldn't find the mummy hand, and of course there was no way I was going to Egypt without it. I was so relieved when I finally found it. It was tucked into the back pocket of a crumpled pair of jeans. If it's that precious to you, why did you leave it in a pair of jeans? Now, as the plane nosed down for landing, I reached for the hand in the pocket of my t-shirt. I pulled it out and gasped. The hand was cold as ice. Chapter 2. Why had the mummy hand suddenly turned cold? Was it some kind of a message, a warning? Was I heading into danger? I didn't have time to think about it. The plane rolled into the gate, and the passengers were scrambling to pull down their carry-on bags and push their way out of the plane. I tucked the mummy hand into my jean pocket, hoisted up my backpack, and headed to the front. I said goodbye to Nancy and thanked her for all the peanuts, 'cause I'm an elephant. Then I followed the others down the long covered ramp and into the airport. So many people, and they all seemed to be in a hurry. They were practically stepping over each other. Men in dark business suits, women in loose flowing robes, their faces covered by veils. Teenage girls in jeans and t-shirts, because some of them wouldn't, be dressed like their mothers. And all the women there wouldn't, are dressed like that and wouldn't, be wearing a nice dress or something. A group of dark, serious-looking men in silky white suits that looked like pajamas. Wait, what? A group of dark, serious-looking men in silky white suits that looked like pajamas. Okay, that threw me off because I expected that thought to continue and it did not. So apparently he's just noticing this and not elaborating more on it. A family with 3 little kids, all crying. I had a sudden sinking feeling. How would I ever find Uncle Ben in this crowd? My backpack began to feel very heavy. My eyes frantically searched back and forth. Do you not have his phone number? Can you not, use a payphone or something to call him? Well, granted, depending on when this came out, probably wouldn't have cell phones then. But I'm thinking they did have cell phones. They were just really clunky and heavy and expensive. I'm not sure about that. Strange voices surrounded me, all talking so loudly. No one was speaking English. Why don't you ask somebody if they speak English? Surely somebody in an airport which would receive a lot of tourism would know how to speak English. Ow, I cried out as I felt a sharp pain in my side. I turned and realized that a woman had bumped me with her luggage cart. Stay calm, game, I instructed myself. Just stay calm. Why would this freak you out? Uncle Ben is here, looking for you. He'll find you. You just have to stay calm. But what if my uncle forgot? Why would he do that? I asked myself. What if he got mixed up about what day I was arriving? Or what if he got... Wouldn't your parents and you and your uncle and everybody go over all this shit before you actually left? Or what if you got busy down in the pyramid and lost track of time? I can be a real worrier if I put my mind to it, and right now I was worrying enough for 3 people. If Uncle Ben isn't here, I'll go to a phone and call him, I decided. For sure. I could just hear myself saying, Operator, can I speak to my uncle at the pyramids, please? Wouldn't you have, a number you could contact him at? I'm sure a worker who likely speaks English would pick up and be like, What do you want? I would like my Uncle Ben Hassad, please. Well, you'll have to wait. He's down in the pyramid. I gotta go get him. Okay. I'll call back in 10 minutes. Is that enough time? Yeah, I'll have him here in a minute. Okay, thank you. And then that's what you do. I'm sorry for my really shitty Egyptian, not exactly accent. I don't know what accent that was. I don't think that would work too well. I didn't have a phone number for Uncle. Why the fuck not? You're staying there. Why would you go and not have a way to contact somebody? I wasn't sure he even had a phone. Why didn't you ask him out where he was staying? Also, if you've been to a dig before, wouldn't you know if they have phones or not? All I knew was that he had been living in a tent somewhere near the pyramid where he was digging. Gazing frantically around the crowded arrival area, I was just about to give in to total panic when a large man came walking up to me. I couldn't see his face. He wore a long white hooded robe. It's called a burnous, and his face was buried inside the hood. Taxi, he asked in a high-shrilled voice. Taxi, American taxi. I burst out laughing. Uncle Ben, I cried happily. Taxi, American taxi, taxi ride, he insisted. Uncle Ben, I'm so glad to see you, I exclaimed. I threw my arms around his waist and gave him a hug. Then, laughing at his stupid disguise, I reached up and pulled back his hood. The man under the hood had a bald, shaved head and a heavy black mustache. He glared at me furiously. I had never seen him before in my life. Chapter 3. Gabe! Gabe! Over here! I heard a voice calling my name. Glancing past the angry man, I saw Uncle Ben and Sorry. They were waving to me from in front of the reservations counter. The man's face turned bright red, and he shouted something at me in Arabic. I was glad I couldn't understand him. He kept muttering as he pulled up the hood of his burnous. Sorry about that, I cried. Then I dodged past him and hurried to greet Uncle Ben and my cousin. Uncle Ben shook my hand and said, "Welcome to Cairo, Gabe." Why would you say that? He's already been there before. He was wearing a loose-fitting white short-sleeved sports shirt and baggy chinos. I don't know what chinos are, but okay. Also, that's a lot of description about a simple sports shirt he's wearing. What sport? I don't know, but it's a sports shirt. Sorry wore faded denim cutoffs and a bright green tank top. She was already laughing at me. A bad start. Was that a friend of yours? She teased. I made a mistake, I confessed. I glanced back. The man was still scowling at me. Did you really think that was Daddy? Sorry demanded. Did she call him Daddy in the first book? I don't remember. I mumbled a reply. Sorry and I were the same age. No? Wasn't she older than you? I don't remember. But I saw that she was still an inch taller than me. I don't remember if they mentioned heights either. She had let her black hair grow. It fell down her back in a single braid. Her big dark eyes sparkled excitedly. She loved making fun of me. I told them about my flight as we walked to the baggage area to get my suitcase. I told them how Nancy, the stewardess, kept slipping me bags of peanuts, because that was important, I guess. I flew here last week, Sorry told me. The stewardess let me sit in first class. Did you know you can have an ice cream sundae in first class? Assuming they have an ice cream sundae on board, probably. I mean, when I was on a plane and they were serving food, it was first come, first served as they went down the line, and assuming you had the money for the food. No, I didn't know that. I could see that Sorry hadn't changed a bit. Well, she sounds snotty-nosed, but, She goes to a boarding school in Chicago, since Uncle Ben has been spending all of his time in Egypt. Why wouldn't she go to school in Egypt? Wouldn't that be easier? Of course she gets straight A's. How do you know this? And she's a champion skier and tennis player. How do you know this? And how can she be a champion at it? Has she competed before? Sometimes I feel a little sorry for her. Sorry? You were jealous of her in the last book. Her mom died when Sorry was 5. Okay. And Sorry only gets to see her dad on holidays and during the summer. But as we waited for my suitcase to come out of the on the conveyor belt, I wasn't feeling sorry for her at all. She was busy bragging about how this pyramid was twice as big as the one I'd been in last summer, and how she'd already been down in it several times, and how she'd take me on a tour if I wasn't too afraid. Has it ever occurred to you maybe she tells you all this crap because, I don't know, she wants you to think she's a big hotshot? Like, it's important to her that you look up to her. Like, I mean, sure, she could do it to be an asshole, but sometimes kids have, like, that person that they're really attached to, and they want to be important to them. That's a thing. Finally, my bungling blue suitcase appeared. So it can look stupid and clumsy all by itself. I lugged it off the conveyor, shouldn't that be a belt, after that, and dropped it at my feet. It weighed a ton. Then why'd you pack so much shit? I tried to lift it, but I could barely budge it. Sorry you pushed me out of the way. Let me get that. Again, why did you pack that much crap if you can't even move your own bag? She insisted. She grabbed the handle, raised the suitcase off the floor, and started off with it. Is she like Muscle Man or something? Like, damn. Hey! I called after her. What a show-off. Uncle Ben grinned at me. I think Sorry has been working out. Well, no shit. Damn. Can she help me move my bed? I've been thinking about rearranging my apartment so that my office can be the much smaller place. He said. He put a hand on my shoulder and led me toward the glass doors. Let's get to the Jeep. Da-da-da-da. We loaded the suitcase into the back of the Jeep. Or, I don't know, why couldn't you put it beside you in the back? Then headed toward the city. It's been sweltering hot during the day, Uncle Ben told me, mopping his broad forehead with a handkerchief. And then cool at night. Well, yeah, it's a fucking desert. Traffic crawled on the narrow street. Horns honked constantly. Drivers kept their horns going, whether they moved or stopped. The noise was deafening. We're not stopping in Cairo, Uncle Ben explained. We're going straight to the pyramid at Al-Giza. I have no idea how I pronounced it last time, or if I'm even pronouncing it correctly. So, yay! We're all living in tents out there so we can be close to our work. I hope you brought bug spray, Surrey complained. The mosquitoes are as big as frogs. Don't exaggerate, Uncle Ben scolded. Gabe isn't afraid of a few mosquitoes. Are you? How can anyone be afraid of mosquitoes? The only thing you really need to be afraid of mosquitoes is the fact that they bite you, thus they're itchy as hell, or malaria. And as long as there's not a malaria outbreak, you have nothing to worry about. No way, I replied quietly. How about scorpions? Sorry demanded. The traffic grew lighter as we left the city behind and headed into the desert. The yellow sand gleamed under the hot afternoon sun. Waves of heat rose up in front of us as the Jeep bumped over the narrow two-lane road. Before long, a pyramid came into view, behind the waves of heat off the desert floor. It looked like a wavering mirage. It didn't seem real. Well, that's sort of what mirages are. They're hallucinations, thanks to, like, dehydration and sunstroke. I stared out at it. My throat tightened with excitement. I had seen the pyramids last summer, but it was still a thrilling sight. Why is that two separate sentences? I can't believe the pyramids are over 4,000 years old, I exclaimed. Didn't we learn this shit about pyramids last book? Also, what prompted you to say this? This is just random exposition. Oh, kids, did you know that the pyramids are thousands of years old? Specifically 4? I bet you didn't know that because you're like 8 and reading these books. Have to get our education in somewhere because it's the 90s and we're required to. Yeah, that's even older than me, Uncle Ben joked. No shit, Sherlock, are you a fucking dumbass? That's not even funny when you're 8. His expression turned serious. It fills me with pride every time I see them, Gabe. Because I would say your name, because it's not like I'm talking to you specifically. Really, when you do something like that, you should really put somebody's name in there if you're switching the main person that a character is talking to. Like, this would make more sense if he suddenly said, "It fills me with pride every time I see them, sorry." Because then you're like, okay, he's addressing his daughter now. That's really the only time you would do that in a book. Or, I guess, in case you're too stupid to remember what the main character's name is, you can tuck that in there as a reminder. The main character's name is Gabe. He admitted, "To think that our ancient ancestors were smart enough and skilled enough to build these marvels. I think we're just rehashing some parts of the last book, it seems." Uncle Ben was right. I guess the pyramids have special meaning for me, since my family is Egyptian, or descended from Egyptians. Both sets of my grandparents came from Egypt. They moved to the United States around 1930, or in the 1930s, but that works too. My mom and dad were born in Michigan. I think of myself as a typical American kid, but there's still something exciting about visiting the country where our ancestors came from. Or where your grandparents came from, but you can marvel at that too, I guess. As we drove nearer, the pyramid appeared to rise up in front of us. Its shadow formed a long blue triangle over the yellow sand. Yeah, that is something you can do, by the way, with your writing, to try and help create images in your reader's head, is to give things like sand a color and shadows a color. Because when you paint with watercolors, or if you're coloring anything as an artist, the way I was taught is that you don't paint anything absolutely white or absolutely black. You always mix it with something. So this is why you can usually see white is distinguished with a bit of blue, and shadows might have purple or something else mixed into it, because they're taught the same way I was. And the idea is that it gives more interest to the scene you're trying to paint. And of course, words are similar to that, with the exception of you can't actually, of course, paint with words, but you can describe things that your readers can imagine, and if you give things colors, then your reader will start giving those things in their imagination color as well. Not to mention, yellow and blue are complementary colors. So it would make sense that warmth is yellow, and the shade or the cool areas of any place in a desert would be blue. I mean, just don't overdo it, but otherwise you should be fine. Cars and tour buses jammed a small parking lot. I could see a row of saddled camels tethered on one side of the lot. A crowd of tourists stretched across the sand, gazing up at the pyramid, snapping photographs, chatting noisily, and pointing. Uncle Ben turned the Jeep onto a narrow side road, and we headed away from the crowd, toward the back of the pyramid. As we drove into the shade, the air suddenly felt cooler. "I'd kill for an ice cream cone," Sorry wailed. "I've never been so hot in my life." "Let's not talk about the heat," Uncle Ben replied, sweat dripping down his forehead into his bushy eyebrows. "Let's talk about how happy you are to see your father after so many months." Sorry groaned. "I'd be happier to see you if you were carrying an ice cream cone," Uncle Ben laughed. A cocky uniformed guard stepped in front of the Jeep. Uncle Ben held up a blue ID card. The guard waved us past. As we followed the road behind the pyramid, a row of low, white canvas tents came into view. "Welcome to the Pyramid Hilton," Uncle Ben joked. "That's our luxury suite over there." He pointed to the nearest tent. "It's pretty comfortable," he said, parking the Jeep beside the tent. "But the room service is lousy. And you have to watch out for scorpions," Sorry warned. She'd say anything to try and scare me. "No, that's not to scare you. That's truth. Don't stick your shoes on your feet until you've checked them for scorpions, because they will get in there, and it is not going to be a good time for you or your feet if you try to put your foot in there. We unloaded my suitcase. Gee, thanks for that. Then Uncle Ben led us up to the base of the pyramid. A camera crew was packing up its equipment. A young man covered in dust climbed out of the low entrance dug into one of the limestone squares. He waved to my uncle, then hurried toward the tents. "One of my people," Uncle Ben muttered. He motioned toward the pyramid. Well, here you are, Gabe. A long way from Michigan, huh? No shit. I'm in fucking Egypt. What do you think? I nodded. "It's amazing," I told him, shielding my eyes to gaze up to the top. "You've been here before. It wouldn't be that great." You know, it's like the more you're exposed to something, the less impact it has on you because you become used to it. If I went to Egypt and saw a pyramid, I'd be like, "Holy fuck, it's a giant fucking pyramid." The 15th time I went to Egypt, I'd be like, "That's cool, it's a pyramid." The 100th time I've been to Egypt, yeah, it's a pyramid. I've seen it like 100 times now. I forgot how much bigger the pyramids look in person. You've been gone for a year. I don't think you've forgotten that much. "Tomorrow I'll take you both down to the tomb," Uncle Ben promised. "You've come at just the right time. We've been digging for months and months, and at long last we're about to break the seal and enter the tomb itself." Isn't this kind of the same thing that was going on in the last book, where they were just about to hit, like, a very important tomb or room or something? Whatever. "Wow!" I exclaimed. I wanted to be cool in front of Sorry. "So you said wow?" That was the best you could come up with. But I couldn't help it. I was really excited. "Guess you'll be really famous after you open the tomb, huh, Dad?" I thought he was already famous. Sorry asked. She swatted a fly on her arm. Ow! "I'll be so famous the flies will be afraid to bite you," Uncle Ben replied. "By the way, do you know what they called flies in ancient Egypt?" Sorry and I shook our heads no. "I don't either," Uncle Ben said, grinning. One of his dumb jokes. Yeah, pretty much. That was stupid. He had an endless supply of them. His expression suddenly changed. "Oh, that reminds me. I have a present for you, Gabe." "A present?" "Now, where did I put it?" He dug both hands into the pockets of his baggy chinos. "By the way, did you know they're baggy? They're really baggy. They're very baggy on him. They're incredibly baggy. Just like his shirt is baggy. Did you know they're baggy? I will keep reminding you that they are baggy." As he searched, I saw something move behind him, a shadow over my uncle's shoulder. Back at the low opening to his pyramid, I squinted at it. As the shadow moved, a figure stepped out slowly. At first I thought the sun was playing tricks on my eyes, but as I squinted harder, I realized that I was seeing correctly. The figure stepped out of the pyramid. Its face was covered in worn yellow gauze. So were its arms and its legs. I opened my mouth to cry out, but my voice choked in my throat, and as I struggled to alert my uncle, the mummy stiffly stretched out its arms and came staggering up behind him. Well, it's alright, I guess. We're using the same ideas, just in a different way. It feels, in parts, exactly like the last book, and I'm not okay with that. There's nothing really new about the opening other than the joke was that wasn't his uncle dressed up as some dude. He just, for some reason, started, like, groping a guy, and then was surprised that it didn't turn out to be his uncle, and the dude was pissed. Apparently needed to know they got free peanuts from that one lady on the plane, and that her name was Nancy or some shit. Apparently it's, like, really important to the plot. I mean, if you probably liked the last Mummy book, you'll probably like this book. It seems the characters' ages and height are inconsistent from the last book, but I don't really remember what they were. I thought Sorry was a year or two older, but I'm not sure. That's about it. So, with the exception of the special book, that's the very last Goosebumps book. As a whole, I think your kids would like it, but I also think there are better books for your kids to read. I would only give a child Goosebumps if they were much younger than what the target audience is supposed to actually be, which is middle school, it seems like. I'd say probably just elementary school students should be reading this. Even then, your 4th and 5th graders are probably going to be bored by it if they so happen to have had the chance to read better material than these books. But at the same time, if you like books for a younger audience, you'll enjoy these. I've heard that R.L. Stine has written books for high schoolers as well as adults. And I've heard that the ones for adults are iffy, and the ones written for high schoolers is on the childish side. I don't know. I mean, we'll see, because I do have some Fear Street. I have one of his original novels. I won't say which one that is, but you'll find out in the future sometime. But I think that's my thoughts on the series as a whole. I'm Caleb, and this has been Red Knot. Thank you for listening. Bye! Have a happy Halloween!